Welcome, everybody, to the fifth episode of the Manalytics podcast. It's a somber day, for me as a Jets fan. That's why I'm decked out here in all black, devastated with the injury news from last night. Aaron Rodgers torn Achilles. But there's reason for optimism. We got some hope. We'll get into that later. We got a jam-packed show for you all today. We're going to talk a little bit about start sits, who you should line up for this week, who you should kick to the curb for this week. We're going to talk about, hey, how we did on those last week. We'll get into some top waiver wire pickups, to help you through some of the injuries that came out of week one. But before we get into all that, Jeff, you owe our viewers an apology. You had one job last week, and your job last week was to help our viewers replace Cooper Kupp. And you know what you chose for them to replace Cooper Kupp with? Before I even get into who you said they should replace Cooper Kupp with, I'm going to give you how many total points you got them. 1.33. 1.33 points, Jeff. You gave us 3 Cooper Kupp replacements, and they totaled 1.33 points. So you may be wondering, how can somebody do that? How could they be that bad? Well, he told you Devontae Parker was a great Cooper Kupp replacement. He told you DJ Chark was a great Cooper Kupp replacement. And he told you Alec Pierce was a great Cooper Kupp replacement. All 3 of those wide receivers, 1.33 points. And on top of that, not only did he tell you Alec Pierce was a great Cooper Kupp replacement, he told you Alec Pierce was going to be better than Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman put up 20 points last week. Alec Pierce put up 1.33. And Jeff, you had the audacity to sit here and tell me that Van Jefferson was trash. Van Jefferson put up 5 times as many points as the 3 receivers you put up, and he only put up 5.6 points. So I don't want to hear it out of you, Jeff. I am never coming to you for a wide receiver pick again. You bashed my Van Jefferson pick. You bashed my Romeo Doubs pick, and he came in strong, 17.73 points. If you would have listened to me, everybody, you would have had 33 points on your roster between Van Jefferson, Nico Collins, and Romeo Doubs. Jeff, you owe our fans an apology.
First off, I don't apologize. Let me make that perfectly clear. And second, you're completely taking what I did out of context. What I said is they were replacements for the season, for the next few weeks. I didn't say this week. As a matter of fact, I said some of these you shouldn't start this week. It's a good pickup and take a stab at, just so we clear. Devontae Parker didn't play. If he would have played, he would have got some points. So that's not fair. And Pierce, yes, Pierce was a letdown. I was a little disappointed with him. All right, I apologize. I can't fight the Pierce one. Yeah, and DJ Chark was hurt. Like he didn't really play all that much either. So in fairness, injuries, I can't predict injuries, guys. I'm sorry. I didn't know Parker was going to be out till game day. Pierce was a letdown. I agree. I can't help that Anthony Richardson doesn't appreciate good players, whatever. But yes, I apologize. I dropped the ball a little bit on Cooper Kupp's replacement, as much as you dropped the ball if you drafted Cooper Kupp, which I told you not to do. But nonetheless, but you're correct. All right. Kudos to you, Dave. I give you kudos for Romeo Doubs. That was a good pick, especially considering my pick would have outdone him if he was healthy. But again, another receiver that was not healthy, Christian Watson. But that's fine.
Hey, it is what it is, man. I'm just saying that was rough. So just a quick recap. We'll kind of get into some of where we were right, where we were wrong. So like while we're talking on the topic is Romeo Doubs, as you just mentioned. I told you go grab Doubs and he will be a number 1. I told you, audience, that he was going to be the best wide receiver on the Packers this year. And what did he do? He went out there and he proved it. Even while nursing a hamstring, even with limited opportunities, he crushed his projection with 17 points. Good for wide receiver number 9 overall heading into week 2. And I know I mentioned he wasn't a snap count, and he was. He I think he only played around like 40% of the snaps for the Packers, but he made the most of them. Two touchdown grabs. That I mean, you really can't ask much more for that. And then the other one, Nico Collins, audience. I told you this was a guy that's got potential to be wide receiver one for his team and could help you offset your Cooper Kupp loss. Now, like his day didn't blow anybody away, but he led his team in receptions, he led his team in yards, and he led his team in targets. I don't know about y'all, but that sounds like a wide receiver one in the making to me, and he still put up 11 points.
In fairness, I mentioned Nico Collins in our draft sessions a few times too, though.
Jeff, it's not a competition, buddy. I get it. Like you're upset. You're upset. You made some awful picks, and now you want to make up for
them. Collins, damn it! This is bullshit.
You should have picked him instead of people that weren't going to play. See, audience, I'll do my homework. I'll let you know when people are injured. Jeff, he doesn't care about you. He doesn't want you to succeed. As a matter of fact, he doesn't even want me to succeed. I went to Jeff and I asked him, hey, what do you think I should do with DeAndre Hopkins? Should I keep him in my flex or should I take him out? And he said, oh, you're going to want to take him out and you're going to want to play Rachaad White. Rachaad White got me 6 points. DeAndre Hopkins would have got me 11. Jeff,
in fairness,
it's not for the people.
In fairness, Rachaad White got 22 carries. I knew he was getting the bulk of the carries. I mean, I just didn't know he wasn't going to do anything with them. So that was a rough. Hopkins didn't do much either. He put up 10 points, and I think he was projected from like 9.6. Like he's a wash. Let's be honest. Like he didn't blow up or do well against that defense. I knew he wasn't going to do that well against that defense, but. Yeah, definitely better than Rachaad White.
Yeah, it's all good. And like this isn't what I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday is not I'll give you a little preview of where my start sits that I was right and wrong on is I decided to put Gabe Davis and head of Stephon Diggs. Obviously that didn't work out. We'll talk more about that later. But it's week one. Like if you're gonna roll the dice and take a chance, do it in week one. Because that's what I was saying. I was like, look, Davis might have a higher floor. Rachaad White had the higher floor. He just didn't do anything with it. So if you're gonna take a chance, you gotta do it on week one. But this isn't a bash. This isn't a bash fest. There's a lot of things.
It felt.
There's a lot of things that we were both right on, and one of the ones that I want to give you props for is if you didn't tune into our live show this Sunday, you missed a lot of great opportunities to get your last minute start sit questions in, and one of them was Brian Robinson, and that was a guy that could have went either way. We didn't know how the backfield was going to shake down, with him and Gibson, and they're facing the Cardinals, who don't have a good defense, but I don't know. That was. You want to talk a little bit about that one?
Yeah. So I mean, both of us were kind of right about this to begin with. When a couple episodes ago we had mentioned that to stay away from Antonio Gibson right off the bat because he was going to be more like a third down back. Brian Robinson is is RB1 for Washington, and he's definitely proving his worth. Even though the Arizona defense wasn't that projected to be that great, they played pretty well. They scored a touchdown on him. They held him pretty well, but Robinson is proving to be that number one back. Gibson's just he's starting to fall off already, and he's super young. He shouldn't even be falling off yet, but I believe in Brian Robinson. I think he's going to have a pretty solid season. If you get a chance to pick him up, which he's probably not available, but if you can get him, I think you'll get, or even trade for him, I think you can get some solid points throughout the season. But yeah, him over J.K. Dobbins is who we had him for. That was the toss-up between Brian Robinson and J.K. Dobbins. Dobbins actually had a decent start to the game, so it wasn't terrible, but we all knew what inevitably was going to happen, which is J.K. Dobbins would blow something and be out for the season again for the third straight season, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, Brian Robinson, that was a pretty solid pick. We told you about that a while ago, and I think that one paid off a little bit for us.
Yeah. And speaking of things we told people a while ago, and speaking of people with the last name Robinson, Bijan Robinson. We told you that Bijan Robinson was going to be in a timeshare, at least to begin the season. And, when Matthew Berry came out and had him at, running back number 3 overall, like, we told you that was dumb. And to be even more specific, on our live show Sunday, told you that he was not going to get 15 carries and that he would have under 20 touches total. What happened? 10 carries, 6 receptions. Now, like, here's where it's a little bit tough because I know, like, I get it. Like, you're probably not too mad because he still had a decent fantasy day.
Yeah.
But we told you Tyler Algier was a problem. He outcarried, outproduced, and outscored Bijan on the day. So the backfield right now is looking like a full-blown timeshare. Do I think that eventually shakes out in Bijan's favor? Yes, but again, this is not ideal for a guy many took in the first round. And again, Matthew Berry had it as RB3 last week. Like, this could have been avoided if you listened to the show.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, Bijan's he did impress though. He had one play where he stuck his leg in the ground and completely made the defender miss. So I mean, he's got talent for sure, but Algier, you could already see week 1, and it's probably going to stay this way the whole season. He's going to get majority of the goal line carries on top of it. Algier is a bruiser. He's the one who can hit. Watching both of his touchdowns, the first touchdown he ran into the offensive line, bounced off, and went out, ran and scored. So he's going to get a lot of the goal line stuff in the hard yardage. And Bijan's good for PPR, but he's not RB3. So yeah, that was a great pick by us.
So we got to ask in the live show, rank these 3. And I think they had to pick 2. It was Travis Etienne, Bijan Robinson, and
Kenneth Walker. Yep. Yeah,
And
we nailed that order perfectly. So we did really well with that. Etienne had a good day on top of it, outperformed Bijan. Kenneth Walker kind of laid in it. He did okay, but he definitely wasn't the other 2. So, but we got that order right, which I was really happy about. So yeah, that was a good pick 'em for Sunday.
And to be fair too, is I originally had, and here's how valuable it is to tune into the live show, is I originally had Walker ahead of Bijan until during the live show it came out that that Cordell Patterson was out for Atlanta. Yeah. So that's when I flipped Bijan and Kenneth Walker. So tune into the live show so you get updates like that.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to really talk about the live show right now, you want to bash my wide receiver picks. I'm just throwing it out there. I might have said Mike Williams might be a better play than someone that you said. Who was that? Drake London.
No. I said I'm going to London.
Oh, because even though my 3 receivers got a collective 1.3 points this week, I'm pretty sure that Drake London pick got you 0. No points for Drake London this week. Okay.
And he played.
And he played. So yeah, I mean that one, Mike Williams definitely. And Mike Williams got a concussion, or he at least came back, but he got a head injury a little bit, and he still outperformed him. So, what do you have to say for London?
Yeah, big swing and a miss on that one. I'll give some more thoughts on Drake London a little bit later in the show, but yeah, big swing and a miss there. I really thought that Atlanta was gonna have a passing offense. And I thought Mike Williams wasn't going to get his share of targets. I thought Quentin Johnson, would have been more involved. And, I said Keenan Allen is healthy, which might be the only time all year you can say that. But yeah, I was dead wrong on that, as I was dead wrong on any game anybody asked me to pick. Seattle versus LA. I thought Seattle was going to steamroll them. They got steamrolled. The Rams dominated that game. That it wasn't as close as the scoreboard looked. I thought
that was great, actually.
Yeah, that was a surprise to me. Like, if we're talking about like things that I learned in week 1, it's that the LA Rams might not be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes after all. They showed life, and more importantly, they had players that showed fantasy relevance. And I know we'll talk about a couple of those later. I was also dead wrong on San Francisco and Pittsburgh. I thought Pitt was going to win that game outright. They suck. So that was as brutal. That was as brutal as you can be. And then New England versus Philly. Now New England probably hung tougher than a lot of people thought, but I thought they would win that game outright. So moral of the story: if I'm suggesting a player, it's pretty good. so far. If I'm suggesting a team, take the other side.
Yeah. Yeah, that New England game was rough for me, especially in the beginning. If you all watched it, I'm sure a lot of people watched it, but that first quarter did us in. But after the first quarter, we buckled down and we're pretty solid. We should have won that game. But to know as a Patriots fan that we competed with the NFC Championship Eagles and were able to compete and pretty much should have beat them if it wasn't for one bad play, made me a little bit happy and a little bit of a promising season going forward. So wasn't a bad pick by you. We should have won that game, but better than a lot of other people. A lot of people said we were going to get blown out, so at least you were at least closer than them. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all right though. We did good this weekend for the most part.
No, absolutely. So now that we got week 1 in the rear view, let's let's look ahead to week 2. Jeff, it's Tuesday. Lots of late breaking injury news. What's happening in the world?
Yeah, well, I spoiled one. Like I said, J.K. Dobbins. Obviously, we knew this was going to happen. We were hoping it wouldn't because he's a good guy. You feel bad for the kid, but again, torn Achilles, out first for the entire season. That's going to ruin him. And then, like we were saying, Deontay Johnson for Pittsburgh. He's going to be out for a few weeks. I got hit pretty hard in that San Francisco game. I told you be careful of any receiver in that San Francisco game, not only for fantasy, but just physically. You feel bad for those guys because they can take a hit. And then, obviously, everybody, the whole world knows Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles 4 plays into the Buffalo Bills game. They still pulled off the victory, but definitely lost the war. And that's gonna sting. So how you feeling about Aaron Rodgers, man? I gotta ask.
I'm feeling horrible. It's as a Jets fan, life is pretty rough to begin with. And this one, you just had you had all the hype, you had all the momentum. They get tagged for Hard Knocks, and like you see the player that Aaron Rodgers is, which is a lot different than the player that maybe he was portrayed to be, or to be fair, maybe that he was. He was invested into the team and invested into their success, and to see that happen 4 plays in is just it's just brutal. And it just takes the air out of your sails. It sucks. You feel for obviously as a Jets fan, I'm disappointed and devastated, and I don't think Trash Can Wilson is the answer, and I think we'll be lucky to go 9-8 now. But you got to feel for Rodgers himself. You got to feel for the players in the locker room, and then you really just got to feel for NFL fans. I mean, this was such a huge story, and the Jets still have, I think, 6 or 7 more primetime games. Nobody wants to watch this shit now. Like, I don't even want to watch it. Like, I don't want to watch Zach Wilson throw the ball 40 yards away from wide receivers. But it is what it is.
Yeah, and did you see the Garrett Wilson catch? What he has to do just to get a completion out of Zach Wilson?
I don't know how you underthrow a back shoulder throw like to your own wide receiver, like mind-boggling. It was a great catch. He purposely tipped it to him, to himself. Like, it was a great catch.
That's the 3rd best New York catch I've ever seen in my life, for sure. So, but yeah, I'm sorry. I will say I'm sorry I watched all of Hard Knocks too, and you guys absolutely worship this guy. And he was going to bring you guys a title. I really believe you were going to be in contention. I'm sad to see him go, but as a Patriots fan, I love to see Zach Wilson walk through that door. I'm not going to lie to you. But yeah, season goes on, man. We'll see how it turns out. Breece Hall looked good though. I will give him that. Breece Hall, if you picked him up in fantasy, that was a good pickup right there. I thought he was going to be out for that game, or at least be slow played into it, but he played pretty well for that.
No, I was very surprised that he looked 100%. Obviously, the conditioning wasn't there. Otherwise, he scores on that long run. But after that, they kind of took him out, let him catch his breath. So he looks great. He looks great.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, so you mentioned some of the injuries, that have popped up. I just want to drop 1 or 2 more in there. So you mentioned Deontay Johnson. He's looking at a few weeks injury with a hamstring. Obviously, Rodgers, Dobbins, Greg Dulcich is another one. Tight end for Denver. where they're expecting him to miss multiple weeks. And then something to keep an eye on out of Philly is Kenneth Gainwell missed practice 2 days straight with rib injury, and they're gearing up for a Thursday night game with Minnesota. Rashad Penny was surprisingly a healthy scratch. So that's a situation to monitor. Maybe, that's something we could add to the things we were wrong on.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. It's early.
Yeah.
We were super high on Penny, but Kenneth Gainwell ribs back-to-back do not practice. It's not super shocking because it's hard to practice with the ribs, but going into a short week, something to monitor. Probably more to monitor because he's more likely on your waiver wire pickup than your active roster.
Yeah.
But something to monitor could mean more snaps for Swift. So, given all the injury news, what are you looking at on the waiver wire this week?
Yeah, so free agent pickups. I got a few to start off this week with, a few that I think are going to emerge quite well. They showed out, or two of them showed out in week one, and a third one's going to, I think, show up a little bit more now that Johnson's hurt. But my first one, if you're hurting at running back, if you're still out from Jonathan Taylor, I think this kid, I've liked this kid ever since his college days at UCLA, but Joshua Kelly. For the Chargers, he Eckler's obviously the number one guy, but they, like we talked about previously, they're already taking some of his load off of him. They're going to kind of ease him into it a little bit more and take a little bit off. And Kelly's going to take those snaps, and he produced and showed up this week for sure, putting up 91 rushing yards and a touchdown. So I think that situation's going to become more of a timeshare than we thought. Eckler was always known as like, hey, take him number one or number two in drafts because he doesn't have to share with anybody. But he'll still produce. He still catches it in the backfield, still scoring. But Kelly's it's gonna be more like a Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt situation in that aspect, I think. So that's a good pickup that you can go with.
All right, so let me ask you about the Joshua Kelly Eckler situation.
Yeah.
So. Do you think that offense? Because it was surprising to me to see them get that many carries each. Like, do you
Yes.
think that with Kellen Moore as an OC, who I know like all the offseason talk was around, always going to let it fly, let it fly, let it fly. Do you continue to see them being that committed to the run?
So yeah, I think they're going to continue to get those carries just because that passing game, now that they're going more down the field, it's going to open up the running game a little bit better. And because you could see they didn't have that many carries and they produced with it. They almost had they had over 200 rushing yards to take a little bit of the heat off of Herbert. So that way, when it comes to crunch time, he can let it fly a little bit more. So yeah, I think the carries will still be coming with them. I think that offense is loaded. I really do. I think they're going to put up 30 points a game easily. Miami's defense, they're not great, but they're no slouch either. So, I mean, I think they competed. The only thing that's going to really hurt that team is the defense. The Chargers defense is so awful. And it sucks, too, because you see so many big names. But that's going to help the offense in that situation, too, because they're going to be playing from behind quite a bit.
Yeah, they're going to be a defense to target, for sure. And yeah, okay, so you're picking up Josh Kelly. Who else is your, one of your top waiver wire pickups?
So this one I was definitely wrong on, and on my. Well, I'll get back to my stardom situm. But this guy emerged as the number 2 in Jacksonville, and that's Zay Jones. I definitely think he's going to be a good pickup. He had a great catch in the end zone, which was phenomenal. That's not the only reason, too, though. He was targeted quite a bit, and he's more of a slot guy than they used him out of the slot quite a bit. That's going to be an asset for Trevor Lawrence. We thought Christian Kirk was going to be the one coming out of the slot, which is why I had him pegged for big things. But Jones had some good plays out of the slot. He could still play on the outside a little bit, but they had a lot of targets to him, and I think he can become that number 2 to go along with Ridley. And Trevor Lawrence is gonna put up big numbers with him. So Zay Jones is another one to pick up. I think he had a big week. And now that Deontay Johnson's out, if you really need to get a wide receiver, this guy, he did well in Chicago. He did okay in Jacksonville originally. He didn't do well with the Rams. I don't know why, but I think he can emerge and come back and at least be a reliable possession receiver, and that's going to be Allen Robinson. I think Pittsburgh can put him into that offense. He replaced Deontay Johnson a little bit this weekend when he went down. It's a tough defense to start off against, but I think Allen Robinson wants to show that he's still got some left in the tank. And I think he's going to be a good pickup to go with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. What about you? You got any waiver wire pickups this week?
Yeah, so I got a couple. I'm gonna start it off with one where that's probably on a lot of people's mind on, hey, who should I pick up in this situation? And it's coming out of that Rams game. Again, I was super surprised that they were competitive. I was even more surprised to see that they had not one but two fantasy relevant wide receivers in that
Yeah.
game in Tutu Atwell and I don't want to butcher his name. Nakua, is it?
Puka Nakua.
Puka Nakua. So, so you're probably looking at, you're like, okay, well, I'm between these two. Who do I pick up? I'm gonna make it real simple for you. Puka Nakua is the guy you pick up. Tutu Atwell has been in the league 3 years now, and he's had one game over 100 yards, and that was on Sunday. So sure, everybody's got to start somewhere, but it's usually not in their third season. So Puka Nakua, he drew 15 targets.
There you go.
He's 6'2". Tutu is about the size of somebody who wears a tutu. He had 6
Hey,
catches
man.
on 8 targets, and what's really unfortunate for Tutu Atwell here is depth chart wise, he stepped in for Cooper Kupp. So, which means depth chart wise, he's wide receiver 1. So he's going to get each team's best corner. Next week, they play San Francisco, who I found out has good corners.
Oh,
so, so if you're looking between Nakua and Tutu, Nakua's 6'2". He had 10 catches, over 100 yards on 15 targets. He profiles as like if you look at his college tape, like he dominated at the point of catch. Like he's not the same size as the person I'm about to mention, and I'm not going to say that he's going to have a career like this individual, but the way that he plays reminds me a lot of Mike Evans. Similar, great at the contested catches. They high point the ball. He's a fast guy. He ran a 4.445, 6'2". So if you're between Puka and Tutu, go Puka.
So let me ask you about Puka real quick, or both of them. I agree with you. You at least pick them up to make sure you have them on your roster. You start them this week
Puka,
since they're
yes.
going to San Francisco.
So my recommendation here would be don't pick up Tutu. Like if you have to pick between the two, pick
Yeah.
Puka. And would I start Puka this week? Yes. Because I just think he's going to have another monster target game. San Fran is a good defense. Again, I wouldn't start him as your wide receiver 1 or your wide receiver 2. I'm thinking like a flex play in like a 12 team league. It's kind of where I would go. If you have questions on, hey, who should I start him over? Let me know. But or let us know. Send us some questions or emails. But I would feel comfortable putting him in my flex.
Okay. I just want to see how many weeks we're going to have in a row where I have to keep telling you San Francisco is good and not starting the receivers against them. So this is week 2. Charvarius Ward, the guy you couldn't pronounce last week, had a pick last game, just so we throw that out there. The other name that you couldn't pronounce, he's probably going to have another one this week against Puka Nakua. But no, I think, honestly, I agree with you on the pickup. Definitely one that's going to be attracting attention for Matthew Stafford. You know how Matthew Stafford is, man. Like he's balled up. He's dependent on one guy. That's his big thing. He's never really been one to pass it around. Calvin Johnson, Cooper Kupp, like these are guys who were breaking records because he relied on one receiver. So now that Kupp's out, I think it's a great pickup, man. Good job with that one.
Yeah, I think it's the way to go. And then, so for my next pickup is probably, I'm going to break it down. Similar situation. is, let's say you're a J.K. Dobbins drafter, or you're a J.K. Dobbins drafter blocker, and you're like, hey, I know that person drafted Dobbins. I want to pick up, and I don't like that person, so I'm going to go ahead and snake Dobbins back up. Who should I take? Gus Edwards or Justice Hill.
Yeah.
So looking at this scenario, I'm going to lean Justice Hill, and here's why. So Gus Edwards has been there. The Ravens know what they have in Gus Edwards. He's a first, second down running back. Justice Hill is the more dynamic of the two backs. He ran a 4.4 coming out. He's younger. He's the better pass catcher, and the Ravens trust him clearly in the red zone, as he got two touchdown carries last week. I think he only had like 4 carries total. So, but I think that's by design. So I'm going to lean Justice Hill. The next week or two might be a little rough on that prediction, but for the long haul, Justice Hill, he's the more dynamic back. He's going to get more work catching the ball. And I mean, Gus Edwards is what he is. I don't think the Ravens have much invested into him into the future. I could be wrong there. I don't know what his contract situation is, but I think they want to see what they have in Justice Hill. The more dynamic back fits that offense better. If you're thinking, hey, Edwards or Hill, go Justice Hill. What say you?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. Justice Hill is the better of the two, that at least looking at this Sunday. I liked Gus Edwards. I thought he was a good back. I thought he could even, start to compete with J.K. Dobbins. So I thought Gus Edwards would be a good pickup. One question I have for you. So you've done your homework on Justice Hill. Do you think Baltimore sticks with him? Do they think that they can go through this season with him? Or do they go hit the free agent wire, maybe pick up somebody like a Kareem Hunt? Maybe trade for somebody like a Jonathan Taylor to make that team a little more dynamic? Like, what do you see them staying put or making a move?
I don't see them going the route of like a Jonathan Taylor. I think that's just too big of a swing. I think they stay put. I think if they do grab somebody, it'll be more of a plotter than a pass catching back. I think they're comfortable with Justice Hill as their pass catching back. So I don't see a Kareem Hunt, because at this stage in the game, he appears to be more of better use in the pass catching field. But they could add somebody, but I don't. But Kareem Hunt would be interesting. But I think Justice Hill. I think they'll roll with him.
Yeah, it's not a bad pickup at all. Like you said, he could do things that J.K. Dobbins could do also. So you're not losing too much. So yeah, I don't think it's a bad play at all. Good, I like that one too. Okay, cool. Any other pickups this week?
Yeah, you're gonna love this one. I was surprised that this guy wasn't on your list. Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne had himself a day, and not only did he have himself a day like this, he started to have a mini breakout last year. I know he had the one game with 9 catches for 100 yards, and then it kind of tailed off after that. But if you watched Patriots games last year, he was always open, and he was kind of their only sign of life. There was a lot of hype about him. So he goes into yesterday and proves that he is their wide receiver one. He's got 6 catches, 64 yards, 2 touchdowns on 11 targets against what many considered one of the best defenses in the league. I said I was a believer in Macaroni Jones. He might have come up short with some throws, but he found Bourne when it mattered on some dimes. Those were dimes. Not only were they dimes, they were great routes by Bourne. The guy has a knack for getting open. This is an offense that has a real offensive coordinator now. I think they're going to be a lot better than people think. And if you have a dynamic pass catcher like Kendrick Bourne, I think they're going to find ways to get him the ball. So I think Kendrick Bourne, owned in 2% of leagues right now, is another individual that if you're a cup drafter, somebody that can emerge as a wide receiver one for you.
Okay. So this is right in my wheelhouse, so I'm glad you brought him up. So first off, Mac Jones, loved how he played this weekend. Definitely not dropping dimes, more like nickels. Just want to throw that out there. His arm strength is not his expertise. If you watch his balls, they are not lasers like Josh Allen. They definitely sail, and they can have issues sometimes. But he was accurate for the most part, and he was hitting Kendrick Bourne pretty well. I do agree with you with that. So, and we know Bourne's capable of handling the load because 2 years ago, before we had that complete mismanage of putting Matt Patricia as an offensive coordinator, 2 years ago, Kendrick Bourne was over 1,000 yards for us. So he's definitely capable of doing it. Great pick on that part. However, the only issue we're going to run into is and I know you don't agree with me on this, but there's a lot of people to target on this offense.
Oh my God! There's one person to target, Kendrick Bourne.
It's not just Kendrick Bourne. Hunter Henry got voted in as a captain. He scored a touchdown. He was targeted quite a bit. Gesicki's getting targeted. Demario Douglas, who I told you was going to be a pickup throughout the season, he's going to be a good slot receiver. He was targeted a little bit. Even Juju, even though he had the drop and had some mess ups, he still got targeted. So I mean, there's just too many mouths to feed on this offense to keep one as a starter for your team, or at least a pickup for your team. But if you're going to pick up one, I don't disagree with you. Kendrick Bourne might be the one to go with, him or Parker, once Parker comes back, because I think Parker will still do good with this offense too. But he's not going to put up 1,000 yards, I don't think. So don't bank on that right away. We have good receivers, damn it, David.
You've got a team full of. You have a lot of good wide receiver threes.
Whatever.
I'll give you. I like Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki. We talked about them, I think, briefly, and when we were looking at potential fill-ins for Kelsey, we mentioned both of those people. At least I know I did. But
Hunter Henry,
it was
I was gonna put him on my pickup list. Hunter Henry's a good one this week.
Hunter Henry is. And I think the more Gesicki gets familiar with that offense, I think that what I worry about between Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki is their targets share together between the two is what I mean. Like, I think you'll run into weeks where Hunter Henry has a big week and then Gesicki has the big week. Kind of like, what we saw back in the early Gronk Hernandez days. Gronk would go off and then Hernandez would go off. And then some days, they did it together. But I think Kendrick Bourne's the clear number one. Juju's a trash can. Devontae Parker, we'll see if he ever plays again. And then Kendrick Bourne, he's a real deal. He's a real deal.
Mario Douglas.
Yeah, sure.
Douglas did okay, and then Booty, he couldn't. He needs to learn how to tip both feet in play.
Dude, twice.
That broke my heart.
Twice.
That broke my heart. But still, he's going to be something. He was an LSU kid that should have been a first round pick if he didn't have problems. So I mean, he has potential on the field. So we'll see. Bourne, like I said, if you're going to pick one, that's not a bad one to pick. But
I think dynamic, and what the Patriots need is a dynamic playmaker, and he's the most dynamic.
We spread the ball around way too much. I'm telling you, we're going to spread the ball around all season. Mac's learning. Mac, unlike some quarterbacks like Justin Fields or Jalen Hurts or any of those bums, Mac Jones actually reads off defense and knows where to go with the ball. It doesn't just target one guy like Matthew Stafford. So,
what Mac Jones needs to do is stop throwing to the outside. Those are horrendous throws. We were texting through the game, and when he stays in the middle of the field, he's good. And I was texting, I was like, why does he think he can throw the deep ball?
But you can't just throw inside all game though either. Eventually, defenses will pick up on that. He's gonna have to throw outside eventually.
But you have to complete those passes, and he can't. He's terrible at it.
He completed that pass to Booty. He just couldn't keep his feet in.
Yeah, that one wasn't his fault.
No, that was not his fault at all. So, no, he played phenomenal. Unlike that bum across from him, Jalen Hurts, which I said was a bum, and he showed it. Mac Jones outperformed easily. But anyway.
What I will say about Mac Jones is if you're in the Aaron Rodgers business and he was on your team, Mac Jones is probably one of the better QB pickups you have right now. I don't know who else you're going to go out there and get. I've seen Stafford's available in a few leagues. Get Stafford. If you're on the flip side of the Aaron Rodgers situation, like, take advantage of it. I've got a guy in one of my leagues. Rodgers was his only quarterback. He's a big Jets fan. I'm in need of a running back. I drafted Herbert and Tua. He's got Jamar Gibbs, Breece Hall, Stevenson from the Patriots. So I just offered him Tua for Gibbs. We'll see if he takes it. I think it's a fair trade. Well, he has no other quarterback. Who's he going to go get?
Yeah, that's okay. So Rodgers goes down. There's two, like you said, Mac Jones and Derek Carr. Derek Carr's another one that I'm seeing out there. There's only 5 quarterbacks that threw for over 300 yards this week. Those were 2 of them. So not bad pickups at all. Derek Carr definitely in sync with that offense. He's got Michael Thomas, who played decent, which I was happy about. Chris Olave showing that he's got the speed to be a number one. So that offense is going. And Mac Jones, I'm telling you, he's going to be a solid pickup for somebody because he can spread the ball around so well. He's going to have a lot of those 300-yard games this year. He's not going to be like EP or Pro Bowl or anything, but he's definitely a solid pickup fantasy-wise.
Yeah, he'll be somewhere between QB 15 and 12 consistently.
Yes.
Like Derek Carr is going to give you some great games, but we've also seen Derek Carr give you some 8-point games, and 3-point games. So I think I would, like, if it was me, I would have no problem picking up Mac Jones. I'm definitely not going the Zach Wilson route.
No.
I would pick up Mac Jones, Derek Carr, Stafford. I would probably go Stafford, Jones, Carr in that order. But I think Mac Jones is about as solid as you're going to get if you're not making a trade.
All right, so our favorite segment of the day, we're going to dive right in, stardom, sit-ems. But before we give you who to be starting and sitting this week in week 2, let's dive back into where we did last week. So, Dave, let's recap it. What do you got?
It was rough. It was looking good heading into the weekend. My first round was like, hey, I told you sit Kadarius Toney. I told you he was a package player, and that proved to be true. He was only on the field for 25% of the snaps, and boy, did he screw those up. He had 1 catch on 4 targets, some brutal drops, and of course, one resulting in an awful pick 6 that's all over the internet. You can see it in his hands. And they're like, "What if I told you this was a pick 6?" So,
Yeah, that's
um,
never.
yeah, it was I just knew I just don't like him. And I don't think Kansas City banishes him just yet. I think he has a long way to go until he starts eating into other players' snaps. Again, he was only on the field for 25%. That's pretty brutal.
He's going to earn Mahomes' trust back too. That's going to be a big, big problem. So
yeah, I mean the silver lining there is he wasn't on the field much, but when he was on the field, they tried to give him the ball. He was just allergic to it. So I think I saw that one coming from a mile away. Again, he was only projected for 8 points, so like saying he was not going to hit that was a pretty big, in my opinion, kind of bold. And he didn't. But the flip side, where I was wrong, was I told you to start Sky Moore. And as bad as Tony did, he got more points than Sky Moore. Yeah, that was a rough one. So I was wrong on Sky Moore again. Like, if you're listening to this, I wouldn't drop him just yet. Keep him as a bench stash because he did play 68% of the snaps, which was the most out of any of the wide receivers on Kansas City. So he'll have better days ahead. So that's how the week started. So I was feeling all right about that. I was feeling encouraged, and then it went off the rails. So I finished my start sit 2 and 4. The ones that I got right were Kadarius Toney, and then I told you to sit J.K. Dobbins. That one was cutting it close. It looked like I was going to be wrong there also, but J.K. Dobbins got hurt, which you got to factor that in because if you would have listened and sat him, you wouldn't have felt that disappointment. And it was the third quarter when he got knocked out. And I think he had 8 carries for 22 yards and a touchdown. So it's not like the dude was tearing it up. So I was right on sitting Dobbins, right on sitting Toney. Where I was wrong, starting Pickens. Turns out Kenny Pickett is just awful. If it's not the preseason, he's not throwing the ball deep. So I was awful on that one. And then the one that it was my make or break, and I'm gonna say it was a bold decision on my part was, and this is something that I did in my league, is I sat Stephon Diggs for Gabe Davis, and my God, that was a horrendous mistake. So Stephon Diggs, I thought he was going to get the Sauce Gardner treatment, which, by the way, his new nickname's Gravy because it's all gravy if you're throwing his way. The Bills went 5 for 5 when they targeted Sauce Gardner. It was one of the worst games that I've seen him play in a long time. But I made this pick because last season it almost cost me the championship. DK Metcalf was going against the Jets and Sauce Gardner in championship week. And I said, I'm going to trust my stars. I'm going to leave them in. He got me 1 point. My alternative would have been Michael Pittman, who was playing with a backup quarterback, and he got 11 points. So I was thinking, okay, I'm not going to make that same mistake again. Let me put Stephon Diggs on the bench and put Gabe Davis in. What the Bills did was they saw the Jets defense and said, oh, they're not traveling Sauce Gardner, so we're just going to move our best player 20 feet to the other side. And how fucking stupid do you have to be if you're the Jets to be like, oh, we can't cover him over there? Like, I almost wish they would have lost that game because of how ignorant they were by not letting Gardner travel with Diggs. And I know Gardner had a bad game, but if he's your number one corner and you think he's the man, put him on the best player who was cooking you all night long. So
Yeah.
they left Davis on the other side. They moved Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs feasted 10 catches over 100 yards and a touchdown. Gabe Davis couldn't even pick up his table scraps. So 2-4 on the week. That's why. That's where I went. Yeah.
Yeah, I again, like I don't mean to give us excuses or give you excuses because I love seeing you wrong. Don't get me wrong, but but at the same time, you can only predict so much. Like if Sauce Gardner had covered Stephon Diggs the entire game, I think it would have been a completely different game. Who would have thought that all of a sudden let's change our philosophy and not switch him around like that? Like that just made me. I agree with you. It made me mad too. I was like, "What are you thinking? This guy's gonna eat you up all game long."
And he was cooking them. Like,
It was absolutely insane. And on top of that, the Jets defense as a whole we thought was really a good unit. So we didn't even have to worry about it all that much. I mean, they got four picks off of Josh Allen. So I mean, they were doing good besides that, but they could have locked it up even more if they had switched him around a little bit. But you can't predict those things sometimes. It's going to happen. But
I appreciate the encouragement.
at least your mindset made sense. At least it's that. At least it wasn't just like dumb thinking and like, oh, this is gonna like your mindset made sense in the process. They just screwed up, which is what the Jets do. So
Yeah. What about you? I was keeping track on your wide receiver picks for Cooper Kupp, but I wasn't keeping track on your start sit 'em. So how'd you do there?
yeah. So this week didn't have the greatest stardom situm reputation, but it's week one. There's so many questions in week one. We're gonna toss it up all that much, but we'll start. So I had Christian Kirk. Completely crapped the bet on me. I think he only had like 3 targets. He had 1 catch all game. I did not see Zay Jones taking his job that quickly. As a matter of fact, I don't understand how Jacksonville pays him and makes him one of the highest paid receivers in the league and completely puts him on the bench most of the time. Not sure how that works. Whatever. That's their finances. They want to pay a guy for do nothing. By all means, I'm available. But I messed that one up. The other one I messed up pissed me off completely. Joe Mixon. I had Joe Mixon being started this week. He put up only 9 points when he was putting up. He was supposed to be projected for like 13, I believe it was. But what kills me is Mixon was doing well. I think he had 12 carries for 57 yards. He was pretty much averaging 5 yards a carry, but because they couldn't pass the ball and couldn't find anybody, Joe Burrow had 82 yards. How the hell is Mixon? Why didn't they give it more to Mixon? It made no sense. Burrow wasn't completing anything, so that's fine. They screwed me on those. If I was coaching, we would have got better fantasy points. Nonetheless, that's fine. Now my sits, I was a lot more accurate with, so I'm a little happy with those. Najee Harris, obviously, San Francisco is probably the top defense. I knew that was going to fall apart. I knew he wasn't going to have a big day. He had a few flashes here and there, but when you have Kenny Pickett as your quarterback, I don't think you're scaring anybody. So they keyed in on Najee Harris to make sure he didn't run the ball well. He definitely underperformed. So I'm glad we sat him this week. And the one I'm going to consider more like we'll consider it like a 1-2-1 this week if you really want to. But DeAndre Hopkins, he was projected for 9.65. He got 10. I mean, he didn't really. It's not like he blew the doors off of anybody. He
That's
didn't.
more than 9.65.
He was a wash. He didn't.
No, 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 no. He underperformed. Let's be clear. If it was the other way around, you'd be taking the W. So you got to take the L.
He overperformed.
Overperformed. He overperformed.
Okay. All right. Well, D Hop didn't have a terrible game, but he didn't have a great game either. But that was another thing. Lattimore, same thing that Sauce Gardner had the issue with. They didn't move Lattimore around, which didn't understand at all, because I've watched Lattimore against Mike Evans for years, and those two are attached at the hip. So I didn't understand why they wouldn't take him out. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure they were more scared of Treylon Burks than they were of DeAndre Hopkins, and that's why Lattimore was kind of staying on his side, because Burks actually had some flashes too. So I'm going to take the tie on that one. You can give me the L if you want to. I can go 1-3. I'm fine. I can own up to it. But DeAndre Hopkins was not going to blow up anything that week either. That was too good of a defense for him to really do much with. So yeah, not the greatest start, but it's week 1. So we're gonna rebound from that. We're gonna own up, and we're gonna do a little bit better job this week. So this week, let's dive right in and make the fans believe in us again. Who do you have as a few of your starts this week?
All right, a few of my starts this week. One, we'll start with the guy you were just talking about, DeAndre Hopkins. As of today, he's only projected to get 11 points, and so the hate on this guy is real, and I don't understand it. So Yahoo currently has him ranked as wide receiver 19 for next week. Wide receiver 19. And this is against the same defense that just gave up damn near 300 yards to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Like I don't understand it. And like, what are we doing here, Yahoo? Like, D Hop dominated targets last week with 13, and he reeled 7 of them in for 65 yards. And he's the clear number 1 on this offense. And let's think about it this way: since his return last year, D Hop has played 10 games. He's seen double-digit targets in 8 of them. And I know 2 different teams, but like the dude gets his targets. Death, taxes, and D Hop getting open. Always going to happen. Write it down.
Getting open?
Yes. And targets.
Oh. Targets and getting open are 2 different things.
He's open. Like the guy is always open.
Oh, come on. No, this is bad, Dave. I hate to cut you off, but that's so bad. First off, don't you ever compare DeAndre Hopkins to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I'm pretty sure one set of guys run a 4.240, the other guy runs a 5.240. It's a little bit of a difference in the speed. and the Chargers secondary, they just couldn't keep up with the speed. They're still a decent secondary. Asante Samuel Jr., Derwin James. I can't say J.C. Jackson because I think he's a bum outside of our system, but that's neither here nor there. But no, man, he's not fast enough to compete with them. This is going to be a bad one.
You know what his nickname is? Nuke. D-Hop can fly. Like he came out, and when he came out of college, which I know it was a long time ago, he was running a 4.4. Like
10 years ago.
The dude made Deshaun Watson's career. What has Deshaun Watson done without DeAndre Hopkins? Nothing.
Beat the Bengals last week.
Yeah. Like DeAndre Hopkins is still good. I don't understand why people don't get it. Like, is he the burner that he once was? No, but he's going to get open. He's a big body. He knows how to use that body, and he catches the ball. Clearly, Ryan Tannehill trusts him. You're talking about 11 points. Like, if he did 6 for 75 against a much better Saints defense than the Chargers defense, which you bashed earlier in this podcast, and we both said that's a defense to target for wide receivers. Target DeAndre Hopkins. Like he's gonna get it. He's gonna get 10 catches.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying don't compare him.
You told me it was horrible.
I'm saying it's horrible to compare him to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill.
I didn't compare him to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I said he's going against the defense that just gave up 300 yards to those 2 wide receivers.
Yeah,
so,
I'm telling you, man, why don't you believe in Treylon Burks? Burks is going to be the guy to take over that team, like
because he's not good.
He's okay. All right, DeAndre Hopkins is a start. I'll give it to you. We're going to find that out real quick. I can't wait to watch that game. Who else do you have?
Staying in your world, a guy you mentioned earlier as somebody to target to pick up, Allen Robinson. You got DeAndre Johnson, who's going to miss this game and miss several more. Allen Robinson right now, he's projected to get 7 points. He's
Wow.
he's going to exceed that. And when you're looking for a flex fill-in for injuries, or because you got a bad team, you can do a lot worse than Allen Robinson. I know he's coming off 3 years of massive disappointments. But A-Rob was a pleasant surprise last week. 60 yards on 5 catches. Again, not mind-blowing numbers, but he did lead all Steelers wide receivers in targets, including Freiermuth, so all pass catchers in targets. And we've seen Kenny Pickett hesitant to throw the ball downfield. Again, apparently only something that he does in practice. So Johnson out. Freiermuth is banged up. I think he's got a rib injury. I fully expect him to play, but it could be another big day for A-Rob over the middle on those short routes.
Yeah, that's a tough one, man. As much as I like Allen Robinson as a pickup, I would have stashed him away maybe one more week until they played Vegas. But who knows? We'll see. But I mean, honestly, they're playing Cleveland, who just shut down Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Denzel Ward's pretty solid. He's probably going to go against Pickens. That's tough. I think he could surpass. I think I agree with you with surpassing the 7 points, but don't expect much more than that. It's not going to be much more than that. But he is a good start over what he's projected. I agree with you. But if you're expecting him to get 20 points, you're going to be massively disappointed because Cleveland's secondary was definitely solid this week. Gibson was another one who was pretty, or Grant Delpit, he played well. He controlled T. Higgins all game long. So we'll see. It's not a bad one though.
Hey, the name of the game is who's going to exceed their projections, not who's going to be the top wide receiver for the week.
I agree. I'm just letting the fans know if you're expecting more than that, don't be surprised. That's all I'm saying. But I agree with you. He will exceed. That's not a bad one.
Cool. All right, and then
what else?
My last start, for the week is, somebody I mentioned that I'm super high on. He had a rough go of it in week 1, but I think we can all kind of see that one coming. Is Dameon Pierce. He's only projected for 11 points right now. Yahoo's got him currently ranked as running back number 19, for week 2, and I just think that's too low. They're going against the Colts, who just gave up 100 yards rushing to the Jags last week in a surprisingly close game. So it's not just like the Jags were running the ball, trying to run out the clock. The Texans' pass game showed signs of life. C.J. Stroud went for 240 yards. We talked a little bit earlier about Nico Collins. Now he showed that he can be a viable number 1. And even though we bashed him a little bit in our early draft segment, Robert Woods showed that he still has some left in the tank.
He did.
So
I was impressed with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was surprising. So this should open up the box more for Pierce. Game script held his touches down last week, but that shouldn't be the case versus the Colts this week. I mean, you got Anthony Richardson, who's not good, and he's also dealing with a knee injury. So I think that should keep him in the pocket, which is not his strength. So I think this will be a closer game, and I think the running lanes will be there. I look for Pierce to bounce back and exceed his projected total.
That we can both agree on, not even a question. I do agree with you. I think Indianapolis's defense, even though Buckner looked really good last week, that's one that you can't. He's an all-pro defensive tackle, so you can't really forget about him. But if Pierce can get to that edge and get to that outside, I agree with you. I think he can put up some numbers, especially now that they know that passing game's for real. That was the biggest concern I had with Pierce. So, solid, man. I like it.
Cool. What about you? Who are you starting?
Yeah, so great picks. This week I've got 3. I went quarterback, running back, wide receiver. So the first one I was a little bit torn on because he's actually projected to do pretty well. But I see him putting up more than what he's supposed to, and that's Jared Goff. We saw Seattle last week give up 200-yard receivers to guys we weren't even sure should have been drafted. Seattle secondary, I was a little disappointed because Tariq Woolen was supposed to be a solid corner, and he could take out the number 1 receiver. But Jared Goff, honestly, he's got some weapons. I love Laporta. I love St. Brown. I think those are 2 that are really going to have great seasons this year. I think St. Brown's going to do well again this week. Jared Goff should I mean, 17 points isn't that much. It's 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. I see him putting up at least 3 touchdowns, possibly more, and at least 300 yards. So he's one that's definitely going to overdo his projections this week.
I like it.
Yeah.
Bold move.
Okay. The next one, this one's a little bit of a homer pick, but if you go to the Patriots, I'm your guy. So, Ramondre Stevenson. I know he had a bad game last week. He was dealing with an illness, so that didn't help anything. He went into the game unsure if he was even going to play because of a stomach bug. Zeke, kind of helped him out a little bit, but. This week we're going against Miami, who gave up a lot of rushing yards to that Charger offense. One thing I was concerned about, and I would have sat Stevens. I actually did sit Stevenson last week because the Patriots guard situation has been a little bit of a problem. Cole Strange, our left guard, Mike Goodwin, our right guard, both were out last week, which was huge, especially against that Philly defensive line. But I will say I was impressed with the replacements, the 2 rookies that we drafted, Antonio Mafi and Sidney Sow. They didn't look good in preseason, but they looked good last week. Like you could see, Mac Jones had a lot of time to throw the ball against that defensive line. They didn't run it well, but that's because that line still overpowered them a little bit. Strange and when you should be back hopefully this week. So that's 2 big powerhouses in the middle of the line. Trent Brown played well. Calvin Anderson played well. That line is a solid piece. And Miami is not going to be able to stop the run this week. I really see that because not only do I think they can't stop the run, I think Belichick's going to run it down their throat for the simple fact that they want to slow down that high-powered offense. And to do that, they're going to time clock and they're going to run the ball well. So Stevenson's going to be a good play. He's only projected to get 12 points this week. I think he can get that easily with a rushing touchdown and like 70, 80 yards rushing. But on top of that, last week he still caught 6 balls out of the backfield. That's easily going to get you past those points. So he's going to be a good play this week for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think the biggest point I would agree with is they're just going to grind that clock, keep Tua and the offense off the field. Cool. Who else you got?
Yeah, and then the third one, this guy we picked him on Sunday. We said that he was going to have a good game this Sunday. And you could definitely see Lamar's already started his connection with him. They finally found him a wide receiver, and his name is Zay Flowers. He led the team in targets, double the next closest guy. It wasn't even close. Like he had 10 targets last week. After that, the next closest one was 3. So automatically Lamar's already starting to look for him. Mark Andrews might not be back this week, so that's going to be another one that's going to affect the game. And even if Andrews does come back, I think Flowers has still earned that trust early on. He's only projected to get 7.78 points.
Oh, God.
That's it. Not even 8 points. That's 4 catches, 40 yards. Come on.
Disrespect.
Yeah, that's just absolutely terrible. I don't see them having much of an issue against the Cincinnati team, which again, not great in the cornerback position. That's not really their top tier thing. They're more of like stopping the run. So I definitely think Zay Flowers is going to outperform that easily this week. So definitely start Zay Flowers if you have him. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That I couldn't believe it when I saw it projected 7.78. Like, what are you talking about? So those are my starts this week. So I'm pretty excited about that one. But what about you? Who are you putting on the bench this week?
Man, so I first person I'm putting on the bench is Drake London. I'm putting him on the bench.
Is it?
Hey, fool me once, So he's projected to get he's projected to get 10 points, and like I'm just staying away from all Atlanta pass catchers until I see something out of Desmond Ridder, other than utter garbage. So this is it's a run first team. They have 2 of the most talented pass catchers in the league in Drake London and Kyle Pitts. They refuse to use him. So if Drake London's on my team, I'm sitting him until I see consecutive weeks of life out of that offense.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Pitts showed some flashes last game. Like there was one play he made a significant catch that was pretty impressive, which I liked. But yeah, I agree, man. They drafted Bijan for a reason. They loaded up and they're ready to run that ball. So yeah, I don't disagree with you. Drake London was disappointing. 10 points is low, but I could definitely see it. I mean, it's a lot higher than 0, which is what he put up. So you can't really believe.
Yeah, and it's not even like they're on an offense where it's like, oh, hey, we didn't get you involved last game. We'll feed you the ball. Like, no, like that's not who they are. So, um, yeah, I'm moving on from Drake London.
Okay.
So,
All right, cool. What else you got?
this one, was surprising to me that he was still projected this highly. I guess he had a decent game. James Conner, projected for 12 points. Um, game script, game script, game script. Like, although Arizona was admittedly more competitive than any of us outside of maybe Jonathan Gannon's mom thought, I don't, I don't see that happening against the Giants team that was just humiliated in week one. Most of the time, teams that get humiliated bounce back in a strong way the following week. And for as bad as they were, they did contain Tony Pollard for as long as he was in the game. I think he had like 16 carries, 70 yards. So about 5 yards a clip. But it's not like he broke big long runs. They have a decent D line. And again, I just think they're going to get down early in this game. Have to throw it. Maybe James Conner gets some passes. I don't know, but I just I don't see it. So I'm passing on James Conner.
In fairness, Pollard didn't get a lot of yards because there was a lot of short fields and defensive
Yeah.
touchdowns. So, in fairness, he didn't have a lot of yardage to gain. But no, I agree with you. I think the Giants they have to bounce back. They have to. It's not even a question at this point. Like, that was embarrassing. And if you're gonna bounce back, why not do it against a team that's supposed to have the number 1 overall pick next year? So, yeah, they can't screw that up 2 weeks in a row. I'll be very shocked. So
Yeah, I mean, Arizona's best chance for a win was last week, and they blew it.
I still think they're only giving Connor fantasy points at this point is just because of the potential for touchdowns from the red zone. That's pretty much it. That's the only thing I can see. So yeah, I agree. Okay, well, who's your final one?
Oof, my final one is one that I would look out for all year long. So I don't know if this was just a toe injury or what, but Scary Terry was scary, and the outlook for the rest of the year does not look great in my eyes. You know, they struggled against Arizona, and Sam Howell struggled against Arizona, who's going to be the worst team in the league. So I think that Washington's going to look to hide Sam Howell even more, which means more runs. So, go Brian Robinson, and more short passes. And those short passes, they're most likely going to go to Curtis Samuel or Logan Thomas, both of whom outperformed T-Mac in week one, as did fellow, better in real life than fantasy wide receiver, Jahan Dotson. So
Yeah.
Scary Terry is still listed as depth chart wide receiver 1, which again, means he's going to get the team's best corner. So this week means Patrick Surtain, and well, that's scary. All right, I'm done with that. But so the path to targets in what I believe a run first offense is bleak for next week and maybe for the season moving forward.
Well, in fairness, as like we talked about earlier, I mean, number 1 corners don't travel anymore. So, I mean, if they really wanted Terry McLaurin not go against number 1 corner, just put him on the other side of the field.
Yeah, genius strategy.
Yeah. What's he projected to get this week?
11.
11 points. Okay. Um, yeah, I don't disagree with the sit. I don't agree with you with the whole keep him out the whole season and stay away from him all season. I think he
I'm
can
not
bounce back.
saying I'm not saying sit him for the whole season. I'm saying keep an eye on it, and you might see him on this list a few more times.
Okay.
It's a situation to monitor. Like, I think a lot of people put him. He's been a consistent wide receiver 2 performer. I think this year he's probably more of a wide receiver 3 flex spot guy.
Okay.
Play the matchups.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. He's not someone that's going to take over a team, but yeah, if you can play the matchups and get a flex by them, I don't disagree with that. But this week, yeah, he's definitely a sit and project. So cool. All right, I like it.
Who you kicking to the pine?
All right, so my first sit this week needs no introduction. Aaron Rodgers. No, sorry, little dig. No, my first sit is a QB though, and I'm not thrilled with how he performed week 1, and I don't think he's going to do much better in week 2, shockingly enough. So it's Joe Burrow, which is a crazy one. So he's been notorious for having some bad week ones. Last year he had 4 picks. This year he had 82 yards. Not exactly his shining moments. That's fine. But usually bounces back in week 2. However, this week he's got a divisional foe in Baltimore who, 2 years ago you would think, oh, Joe Burrow against Baltimore, this is great. He put up 300 yards, 400 yards those 2 years ago against them. Phenomenal. Like he loves going against Baltimore, except last season, not so much. He barely, I think he threw only 1 touchdown in both games. It was under 300 yards in both games. It was like low 200s. He didn't perform well. Baltimore's finally figured him out a little bit. And I don't think he's going to be able to surpass his 20 points that he's projected to get this week. Like he's already projected to put up high numbers. And I just don't see it. Baltimore did a pretty good job this week, and I consider them, one of the better passing defenses in the league. So if you have Joe Burrow but you have a viable backup, I definitely think you sit Burrow and put in that backup, like Jared Goff per se.
I'll disagree on that. I think Burrow bounces back. Although there is the potential that maybe he doesn't play. Like maybe the calf injury to now with Rodgers and the Achilles, maybe that scares Cincy if he's not really fully healthy. But I think if he does play, I think he bounces back. But all right.
Yeah, like I said, it's more of a matchup thing. Baltimore, I really think they've figured him out, and I just don't. 20 points is a lot, man. That's a lot to go against. So we'll see. And like I said, I think that injury might be lingering a little bit because Cleveland's a good pass defense. They're not 83 yards good. So there's something there. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to find out. But all right, my next one, running back. This one, I'm so mad I drafted him in like 2 of my 16 leagues. I should have never did it. I knew I shouldn't have done it. He's a failure. Do not pick him up again, ever. I will not pick him up again. But he's projected to get 8 points this week. I don't even see him hitting that. I really don't. If he gets 3 points, I'll be impressed. Cam Akers.
Oh, God.
Cam Akers is so bad. He scored last week. I get it. But Kieran Williams already stole his job. Already stole it. Like, not even week 1. Like, he had a good ending of the season last year. He was supposed to be big. Nope. Kieran Williams already took it. He's got 2 touchdowns. He's getting the bulk of the carries now. Cam Akers basically got that touchdown that he scored as sympathy. He went straight to Sean McVay, and McVay was proud of him. Like, it was like a father-son moment all of a sudden. Like, oh, I finally got you a touchdown. Congratulations. Do not pick up Cam Akers. He's going against San Francisco this week, which obviously, if you didn't learn from me last week, is the best defense. And if you don't know that by now, you need to listen to us more often about fantasy. But yeah, Kieran Williams is taking the bulk. They're passing the ball a lot more. Like we said, Tutu Atwell, Puka Nacua. Those are names you're going to hear. You're not going to hear Cam Akers in the end zone. Do not start him. Don't even think about it. You shouldn't have been thinking about it already, but if you are, I'm here to tell you, don't start Cam Akers. He's not even getting you the 8 points.
Yeah, it's hard to have a rushing line worse than 22 carries for 29 yards.
Bad.
That's embarrassing. So
bad. Yeah, that's almost as bad as Rachaad White.
Yeah. 8 points is a low floor, but yeah, it's hard to see the path. Because sometimes you run into players that at least earned another opportunity, but like this is just so inefficient. And he's already been in McVay's doghouse before, so he could be a healthy scratcher for all we know. But cool.
And he's not even capable of catching out of the backfield as much as Williams is. Like Williams is going to be getting the catching plays too. So yeah, I just and going against Fred Warner and Bosa and all those guys, it's just a bad. Don't even do it. So that's my running back. Now this one, I'm pretty sure I know you like. I'm excited about this one. Everybody's excited about him, and they're thinking, oh, you have to start him, right? Let's not rush to conclusions this week. Let's take Tyreek Hill and put him on the bench on your fantasy team, okay? Now everybody's got to be thinking to themselves right now while they're watching this, like, what idiot benches Tyreek Hill, who just put up 215 yards against the Chargers and completely dominated? Who the hell would bench him? This guy, okay? So New England is who he's going up against, and we all know, all right, right off the bat, not even looking at Tyreek Hill's numbers, what's Bill Belichick's number 1 MO? I'll leave that to you. What is it?
Take away the team's best player.
The best player. Thank you. So you're going to take away the best player, which is obviously Tyreek Hill, not even a question. But you're like, well, there's not always proof of that. Sometimes really good players go against him. Really, okay, let's look at Tyreek Hill's track record against New England the past 5 years, let's say. He hasn't had a 100-yard game against New England since 2018, okay?
Ooh.
2018. He hasn't the past 2 seasons he's been in Miami, he didn't put up 100 yards. Even when he was in Kansas City, it took him a while to put up 100 yards. He hasn't scored a touchdown against New England since before COVID. Okay. So since 2020, he hasn't put up a touchdown against us. So right off the bat, the proof's in the pudding. We take away Tyreek Hill. On the flip side, you might want to start Waddle. Waddle might not be a bad pick. Sure, I didn't put him in my start because I kind of wanted to pair him up together. But if you get the chance, do not start Tyreek Hill this week. Do not fall for the trap of two. He just put up 200 yards. I'm sure he's pretty tired from putting up those 200 yards. Maybe he's going to want to take a break this week. But keep him on your bench. Keep him away. Bill Belichick will take him out of the game. He will not do as much as he's not going to put up 16 points is what he's projected to do. That's a massive number for a wide receiver for a guy who hasn't put up 100 yards in 5 years. So that's my big sit-em this week is Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Just strictly for that reason, like that's what New England does is they take away everybody's best player. In this case, it's Tyreek Hill. No offense or buts about it. I mean, Tua hasn't had tremendous success, against New England either. He only played him once last year, and he had one touchdown. QB rating of 79. So,
which was a garbage touchdown right before halftime. It was 4th down, and they went for it, and Jalen Waddle just happened to get open. Garbage touchdown. He didn't even earn that shit. Sorry, that made me bad. Brings back bad memory. Sorry.
The two other starts, 109 yards and 202 yards. Back in 2021, which I know was maybe a different Tua, but yeah, it's a matchup that I'm staying away from. I thought about maybe having Waddle in my sits or in my starts, but he went for three catches for 5 yards last year in the second game that they played. So it's what Belichick does. Tua is, you like to say that Jalen Hurts is overrated and a product of the system. That's how I feel about Tua. He's a little bit of fool's gold, and I think that's why Miami kind of fades down the stretch. Is they're great in great weather. There's great when there's not a lot of elements. I know Tua had a good game, on the road in Buffalo, but you start throwing some adversity in there. You start giving them some pressure. I think New England. I think they're dogs in that game, but I think they take that game.
Yeah, and not to mention our pass rush, as good as it was last season, is even better this season. So Miami's offensive line, not great. They're okay. They're middle of the pack, not terrible. I've been told to keep them out of my mouth, but I'm going to still throw it out there. They're middle of the pack. But this year, not only do we have Matt Judon, we have Josh Uche, who's rushing the passer really well. But this kid that we drafted in the second round, Keon White, monster first game against Philly. Like, he was all over the place. Like, we have a pass rush finally, which is phenomenal, blowing people away. And then our secondary is good too. Christian Gonzalez played phenomenal, our first round pick. He's going to be all over Tyreek Hill. Plus, he's going to be getting help, obviously. But this defense is just solid. I really love the defense. I'm not trying to be biased about this, but I know what they're capable of. And Tyreek Hill, yeah, sit on the pine this week. Don't even think about it.
All right. So with that, we'll wrap up with what'd you learn from week 1?
What did I learn? I learned don't listen to GMs when it comes to we've got special packages. You earn the spot. Well, don't listen to any GMs when it comes to what their players are capable of. There were a few different teams that were telling us certain things and didn't come out at all. Yeah, I learned, and I also learned this week that offense was not big this week. I don't know if it's just teams feeling other teams out, like it's week 1, there's rust involved, but when I was looking at some of the numbers, offenses were down this week. Did you notice that, or was that just me?
Well, I think it's a trend because it was last year too, and my theory on it is it's because nobody plays in the preseason. So Football is a complex game. You need those reps to work out the kinks, to build the familiarity. That's why Rodgers wanted to play in the preseason. Thank God that injury didn't happen in the preseason. You would never hear the end of it. But I think it's because we saw it last year. Like last year, offenses were putrid in the beginning of the season, and it just takes time. So I think I wouldn't be surprised to see the NFL put some sort of clause in that certain players have to play X amount in the preseason or something along those lines because it is affecting the product.
I don't know. I mean, I don't disagree with you. It'd be a good idea, but they'd get around that somehow. Oh, my back's hurting a little bit this week. I think I need to take it off this week. That's rough. But yeah, I agree. The product took a hit this week. There's not watching it, not a lot of rushing yards. I think we had maybe 3 or 4 over 100-yard rushing games, and receiving, I think there was maybe 3 or 4 over 100. There weren't too many over 100. I just kind of baffled me when it came to the fantasy game. I had a bad week in fantasy in certain leagues and still won just because everybody had a bad week in fantasy. So unless they go against Tyreek Hill, but other than that,
yeah, I lost in one of my leagues and I scored 85 points, and it's a 10-team league and I'm still in I think 6th place. So I was the second highest losing team, with 85 points.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There wasn't a lot of good teams out there this week. But what did you learn from week 1?
Man, what I learned in week 1, I touched on some of it a little bit earlier. Learned that the Rams, they may not be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes, and they may not be looking to trade Matt Stafford, which may be unfortunate. I
heard that rumor that Stafford the Jets should have called them. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. I learned that the Atlanta Falcons pass offense is still putrid, and I learned that Kenny Pickett does in fact suck. So
fair enough.
And I learned the Jets are cursed.
Yeah, it's ruined. Sorry, man. Zach Wilson for another season. You can call, so I'll just throw this out there. We can keep this in if you want. But how great would it be if Tom Brady came out of retirement right now, came to the Jets, took you guys to a Super Bowl, and then threw a pick 6 to lose the game just to screw you guys over one more time?
He might do that. He might do that. And but I think he's having too much fun. He was blitzed out there at Patriots Day. Did you watch that halftime interview with him when he was on the field?
Drunk.
Oh, he was
drunk.
Faced. Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm so glad somebody agreed with me. I told the whole chat that I was in. I was like, he is so plastered right now.
Yeah.
No offense, Tom, but we know when you're drunk. We saw Super Bowl 7 coverage when you threw the Super Bowl trophy across one boat to another. We know when you're plastered, and that was definitely plastered. That was almost as good as Joe Namath "I'm gonna kiss you" moment.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. One
so yeah,
away from that.
Yeah, he's definitely having fun for sure. But good episode, man. That was awesome. I'm excited. If you're out there right now watching, don't forget Sundays we're gonna go live. Right now we're starting off at 11 a.m., 11 to 12. Email us, comment, send us over your questions and stardom sit-ems for the week. We did pretty good on Sunday. Maybe don't listen today, but listen for Sunday because we
need time to digest the week.
Yeah, exactly. So if you got any, throw them our way. If you want to join us live on Sunday, we'll send out the link via Facebook, Twitter. We'll send them all out there. But yeah, we'd love to hear your questions. We'd love to get you some answers. We'd love to hear your insight too. So anything you got for us, throw it our way.
Absolutely.
All right. Deuces.